Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Cheta once.
And Cheta, as usual, you're off on one of your many yearly junkets. Where on earth are you right now?
I'm in a nice warm place. I'm in my office in Lagos. It's nice and warm.
In fact, the other day,
the little humming you can hear is called air conditioning. We should try it sometime.
the other day you were looking at being deliberately provocative by telling me you were sitting by the river and having some palm wine.
Because I was sitting by the river Niger. Cool breeze was blowing me, and I was having my own food with some of my elders.
I refused to engage because there was no need for that deliberate provocation. Therefore, there was going to be no engagement on my part.
You should try it sometime.
You know what? I just might. But to the business of the day, we wanted to talk briefly about the Chancellor's budget last week. What is to be expected? What has been put forward? The plans have been put forward, and what, if any, that means for a lot of our audience listening again from all over the world, and we should start by saying a huge thank you. We're getting more and more people listening from just all over. So thank you, and Cheta, let's just dive into probably one of your favorite topics, the budget.
Why is this one of my favorite topics? It's my wife that's responsible for budgeting at home. So my work is the other work. Find the money. She will disperse.
Yeah. So anyway, carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the UK announced its budget last week. The UK has a very different tradition from places like here. So here it's the president who goes in front of the National Assembly to read out the budgets. Nobody really questions when that happens. But in the UK, the budget is read out by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I think that's a full title. It's the equivalent of the finance minister. It's read at the session of parliament, and the leader of the opposition, in this case, everybody has a chance to report and say something. And everybody not speech was we'll get to that, especially since she's our sister. It was very interesting. It's what you call politically brutal. I actually enjoyed it. Especially because
it might have been politically brutal, but it was leaning into every stereotype that
you see from the viewpoint of pure entertainment, especially given what I do. It was fun.
No, but you see, and I think that's a problem. It became more entertaining than substance. But you know what? Let's not derail. Kemi has a way, either by her words or just by being present, of derailing any sane conversation. So please, let's just stay on topic.
I beg to differ. I think she has kind of run into the role, but yes, let's stay on topic. So the like any budgets, it's had the UK budget had quite a number of parts. And I think that we can actually say so there's a fiscal piece which is very important. So for example, they are raising thresholds on like the number of stuff, income tax, national insurance. Those are frozen for 3 years and will come into play in between 2028 and 2031. I think that's politics. Things being frozen in place to start increasing towards potentially start increasing towards the next election. From my point of view, it means that if they are voted out, the next government is found it will be carrying the can. If they are still voted in, well, they were voted in. So, but this
but sorry, Chela, but then her argument will be, and I think that's what it's mostly been, that because they had made a manifesto promise not to increase taxes on working people, by freezing that threshold, Whilst you're not breaking that promise of
You are
increasing,
kicking the can down the road.
but then you're also, like some have said, it is a way of increasing tax without increasing tax. But you can get away by saying, well, we really didn't actually increase tax. But
Yes.
anyway,
Again, like
yeah.
I said, it's politics that they played. The thing is, it's projected to bring in, I think, 23 billion pounds, like 2031, thereabouts. So at the end of the day, I think that he really shouldn't have made that promise not to increase taxes. Again, I understand it was politics to to get people to vote for them, but that is coming back to bite her. Because she's gone in there, she's seen what they call the black hole in the finances, and she's looking for money everywhere. Another thing that's from the fiscal side, which is probably one of my favorite bits, is the tax on wealth and assets. Um, there's this thing that people on the right tends to make it look like it is like when you mention, oh, a wealth tax or whatever, it's jealous. It's not. And it's basically for a society to function. And it's always very interesting when I see people on the right, talking about how Scandinavian countries especially are doing so well. But Scandinavian countries basically tax the bejesus out of the broadest shoulders. So basically, the philosophy is that those with the broadest shoulders should carry the heaviest loads. And so she's putting something called a mansion tax. So on properties valued at over £2 million, there will be a tax starting at £2,500 a year. I'm not quite sure how many of such there will be quite a this. I mean, if you walk through central London, there will be quite a few of those. So they will be,
And sorry, and
yeah,
just on your point on the Scandinavian countries, one other thing that people conveniently want to forget is that these Scandinavian countries, especially Denmark, Finland, Sweden, they're in the EU, which again, the UK Brexit made itself, what was that? What it cut off its nose to
impose
spite its
economic
face.
sanctions on itself.
Yeah, and for me, one thing that amazes me about the communication from this government is how they never make a full argument about just how disastrous, how thoughtless, how stupid the decision to leave the EU was. You see them now and then, sort of like just throwing a topic. The
I don't
prime
know why
minister.
I don't know why you're complaining. You're at the table. You should sell them. You're
Oh
on the high
well.
table.
No, remember when this EU? I wish. Remember when this EU
I did say
thing?
that I'm going to use this
I
regularly.
know, I know. Which is why I said this is probably going to be your favorite uh, topic, because you at every point you're going to say, "Oh, it's your Labour government," but the EU has been such a disaster for the
L-
economy.
Leaving the
Oh,
EU.
sorry, leaving the EU. I'm sorry. Brexit has been such a disaster for the economy. But even now, you see, the Prime Minister will probably just say it in one sentence at some random event,
And then move on.
and then move on quickly. And the Chancellor mentioned it briefly in just one time, just dropped it in during her budget speech, then moved on. But even if even though
It's not
there's almost,
political cowardice.
I should have never interrupted you. Please carry on.
Anyway, still on the fiscal thing, they're going to put a pension cap. Basically, I think it's £2,000. But again, they're keeping the can down the road. It's starting from 2029. They are going to increase gambling taxes. I think one of my favorites, which I'm not too happy about, is that they are going to put a new tax on electric vehicles. It is starting from 2028. I mean, it's sort of like at the end of the day, electric vehicles were exempt from a few taxes for the longest of times, but now they are bringing them in. So that was part of the scheme to encourage people to buy electric vehicles. Then, interestingly, move towards electric vehicles sort of being derailed in the West. But again, that's another topic. Let's not go into that. Um, Bottom line is from the viewpoint of our people. us. I think that's it's important for African heritage experts in the UK to understand that our tax bill will increase with any pay rise. So once you are pulled into the higher bands, your tax bills will go up. It's you could say it is sales tax, but it is what it is. For those of us who have property, and I believe both of us fall into that category now, there's going to be higher tax on rental profits.
Mm.
If you put your property as a company, there'll be higher tax on dividends. So this will reduce the investment cost. So I think it's important to put that out there. Also, um, there will be reduced tax efficiency for retirement savings. So basically what they've done is to encourage people to invest more in stocks and shares and their ISAs. So that's I think that's a positive, that particular one. The negative part of this, or the key risks, who will be managing those ISAs? Because that's a very important question to ask. If people have to manage them by themselves, and not all of us are investment gurus, I know I definitely am not one, you might end up making a terrible investment that can
Yeah.
wipe off your retirement. Uh, Given our age, we're in our mid-40s, both of us, we, we are at that stage where we also start taking very, very
Wait,
serious.
wait, wait, wait. Hang on. Let me just rephrase. You're in your mid 40s. I'm in my early 40s. That's what I choose to call it. But carry on.
That's where you choose to put it. Okay, you can keep deceiving yourself. But that retirement time will creep up faster than you can
It's
even
fast
begin to
drawing.
imagine. So
And as someone who is here at this age, that means there are a lot of people behind you, just looking at you, not just your immediate family saying me, but then knowing how our societies work, you have more people back home also looking at you saying, give me. So
yes,
while somehow you're being dragged stealthily into paying more tax, what will also happen is your disposable income falls, whereas
precisely.
your responsibilities, if anything, they rise because they never remain the same. Because inflation will rise, so that means if you used to send home 100 shillings, for instance, you might now need to send home 120 shillings. However, on the flip side, the money that you were receiving has and that is quite and it's one of those interesting situations, where people from our communities are going to be asking themselves whether they really want that, in quotes, promotion at work, if you're working,
I
or
think
not.
that's so. I think that's a very interesting point that you have made. It's something that has a potential to sort of reset the mindset of a lot of our people. And I had this experience, this is 2025 now. I had this experience 18 years ago when when I first lived and worked in the UK. I got promoted. So my colleagues in the place I was working at the time used to be very laissez-faire about promotions. They were very relaxed. And I felt with my Nigerian mindset, I felt that they were simply not ambitious. So I hustled and I did an internal application for a new role, which was essentially a promotion. And I got it. But the moment I got promoted, take home pay fell. I couldn't understand what was happening. Like, what is this? So that was when I began to understand. So so it's a sort of um so our mindset is geared towards high sales. So we want to be the organ is where we want to wrap where we are. But if the cost of rising is less pay, then a lot of people might actually become quote and unquote that lazy bricks that
Mm.
just wants to stay where he is so that he doesn't have to contribute more. So it's a chicken and egg situation. People do need to get promoted because you can't see you just have to say instead of us. how do you balance it out with, let's say,
And that is one of those things that is quite interesting again, because um so as a counselor, I interact with different community groups, especially in my ward. So on this occasion, I went to a food bank that was being run or that is being run by one of the churches in my ward, and I think I had a shock of my life, because I saw people who I knew, well, at least from a distance in my ward, who I knew had, jobs, and I assumed were, well-paying jobs, but I saw them using the food bank. And I think that was when it, and this was like years back anyway, but that was when it dawned on me that, there was always this joke about that we used to have in Nigeria that, oh, my take home pay is not even taking me home. But
yeah,
that's when
that,
it dawned on me that indeed was reality of so many people who, although they're in work, and they're doing, this 9 to 5, however, they still depend on charity
yes.
to a large extent, to feed their
So basically
families.
make ends meet.
Yeah, so you've actually just said it. There's that thing of people from our communities having to ask themselves, do I want to carry on with this ambition? Yes, this is who we are. Or do they then look at, and I think it's also an opportunity in disguise, to then tap into the entrepreneurial spirit that we are very famous, or at least a lot of people from our communities are very famous for. And you see it when people move over here. In just a couple of months, someone is already putting something in WhatsApp group. Oh, look, I make food, or I make clothes, or I do. There's always that hustle, as it were. So the interesting thing is, I believe this budget gives some opportunity
Some
for
latitude.
some latitude for those who want to be entrepreneurs, and I think it's time to start looking at it. However, um it's I think one of the unintended consequences for a lot of people, I believe, is they then ask themselves, do I go for certain jobs? And this is what I mean. The threshold for sponsorship for certain job categories was increased, I think, last April. So this then means people are looking at, if you're solely money minded, but you need that sponsorship, you're going to ask yourself, well, the threshold for getting this job has gone up. Do I go for it knowing that I'm going to be less able to take care of my family? I think at some point it's going to cause difficult conversations to be had, especially with people here and in the diaspora, to say, look, you know what, give me 5 years at the minimum. I may not do all that you expect me to do, but I'm working
And
towards
again,
it.
chicken and egg, and it's chicken and egg, and it's one of the reasons that we're doing this. So try to explain to our people the implications of things. You've mentioned the entrepreneurial series that we have, people generally, which it must be said is the result of the something of our own concept, of where we come from. So you have a situation. This new budget has constraint our and the one that's coming to the protocol. It's not the right one, but let's go with that. Basically, it has support for businesses and investors. So they are retaining the G7s. The UK have the lowest corporation tax rates in the G7s. They are retaining that, and they're also giving full extensive business investments. They're also introducing a listing for the UK listings release from stamp duty, basically so that they can encourage companies to list in London. I think that's for 3 years. Then they are reforming the whole ISA rules. So there's £8,000 of annual allowance for investors. Starting from 2027, which is, I mean, 2027 is literally next year now.
Mhm.
At this point, we're at the end of 2025. I think we in Nigeria things that are sitting in Nigeria right now. We got a lot of our work culture, our behaviors from the fact that we were colonized by the British. So
Mm.
if Nigeria, if the UK is anything like that, today we're in December, it means that the year has ended. Not much is going to get done.
We might as well be in 2026.
Yeah, we're more or less in 2026. They're also committing an additional 120 billion pounds in capital investments and over the course of this finance, energy and house. So for our people, if you want to be an entrepreneur and become a public builder, there will be a lot of opportunities for that. And it's when you consider that the summer government is sorting of building, is it 8 new cities?
About 12 new towns.
12 results. Yeah. So there are opportunities for the more entrepreneurial minded. It's not just about making purpose. There are things that our people can do.
I and that's true.
Yeah. So I think for me, from a business perspective for our people, the thing that a lot of our people need to really learn is how to manage strategic reporting, because there will be stricter penalties for late reporting on self-employed people, landlords with more than £50,000 of annual rental income and all of that stuff. So basically, what they are looking for, they are trying to do, I won't call it an austerity lights, but they are trying to find places where the government are making money to plug those places. That is their current strategy in my region.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overarching ideology was, whilst a conservative government would have, without thinking, cut public services, this government is saying, look, we're going to invest more, even more in public services, but investing in public services means that one way or the other, money has to be raised. So it's trying to be creative with how that money is raised. I mean, to be fair, or to be honest, I don't think they went far enough with the gambling tax. If you walk through city centers, there are new gambling shops rising almost every day, and you see the harm it's causing in terms of gambling addiction.
Yes. So
I
now
believe
gambling.
they should have gone further.
Let me interrupt you there. Gambling for me is the ultimate barometer of poverty. So let's take where I'm sitting right now. My office is in a part of Lagos called Magodo, which is a pretty highbrow area in Lagos. Now, if I'm going to Victoria Island, which is another highbrow area, and I decide to pass through Ikorodu Road, one thing I have observed repeatedly is that I don't see gambling shops inside Magodo.
No, of
I don't
course.
see gambling shops in Victoria Island. But when I move from Magodo district to Shankisha, which is next door, and which is a high density, it's a mix. Shankisha has pretty poor areas and has some middle class areas. You see the gambling shops start coming up. The moment you get to Kitsu, which is next to Shankisha and which is a pretty low income area, gambling shops are everywhere. It's the same thing in many places I've been to in the UK. You find the gambling shops are open in places where people of lower income strata congregate. So I don't think that increased gambling taxes will solve that problem. What I think is that it will simply move that problem underground. And you want to have visibility on that problem.
Yeah, well, that's
That's
a
my
pretty
view.
fair. That's a pretty fair
Yeah.
point. Well, listen, Chandler, let's go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at two items or announcements in the budget that directly affect our communities.
No wahala.
Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
and entrepreneurial.
So that we've been talking about the budget that was released last week, and quite interesting implications for our communities, especially thinking when you talk with a lot of people and the feedback you get is, I really don't see how that affects me. But it's quite interesting that when you take a step back and look at it, it really does affect us in many ways. Now, in the budget, although there has not been any meat put around the bones of what was mentioned, the chancellor in her speech emphasized reforms to the visa system to bring in the brightest and the best. From our experience, Cheta, we know that this is code for we're going to increase visa fees.
Yes.
Other than that, we're also going to increase the bar for when people come in. But it's I've been in the UK since 2021. We have been in the UK since 2021, and since when we applied, and depending on when you applied in 2021, we've seen visa fees go up maybe 2-3 times, and each time by a factor of almost, if not more than 100%. And
Not
so,
not 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 up to 100%, but they usually tack on a few tens of pounds here and there.
so I'll tell you what. So I'll give you the IHS, which is Immigration Health Surcharge, for instance. When we
Yes.
applied, it was £400 per person. A few months later, it was about 600, and then after that, it was about 1,000 something. And I was
Yes,
like,
so cumulatively it has gone up by
well,
more than
yeah, well,
100%.
yes, yes, yes,
The
yes,
first one was 50%, but anyway, all of that
true.
is the point is it's a money making scheme,
Mm,
and it's having the thing is because it's political red meat for the far right, what it's having, and I I like to think that smart people with this the bureaucracy can see it. It's actually having a negative people wanting to the UK. And you can see it in, for example, net migration figures, the way they precipitously drops. The
mm,
UK is so people like us are stuck because we've already committed. So we just have to see it. So we just have to see it. So me. So people and I think me and you are part of what's far right support in Boris V.
mm,
We came in, we came in post COVID, um, and and that's what they call the Boris V. Now, many people, and not we, so in both our cases, we were fortunate enough that we did not have to sell off everything in
mm,
order to, but nevertheless, it's the whole move. Now, speaking for me personally, the move made a significant dent in my long-term savings. I said, no, dent is not quite the word.
all of us.
It was a significant panel I
Mm,
was dug into my long-term savings. So essentially, when you do something of that, you are committed. You are A already. So we are right. To use the expression from our part of the world, our necks are open for the night to keep cutting.
mm.
We we can we just have to see it through at this point. But what is happening is that the UK is getting less active for new people, and you can see it in the numbers. And the people who are going to spring first ultimately will be the universities. I think they will put pressure.
It, no, but it's not even just the universities, because I mean the interesting thing is when you look at the one sector where a lot of people from African heritage communities work in is the health sector. Now, the capital budget has gone up by about 3%. So that's from circa 1995.6 billion to about 226 billion, for next year. So that means there's going to be more. And it's quite interesting because the government keeps talking about, this capital investment in health. So there's more hospitals that are going to be built, or more health centers, or all that. These will need to be staffed. And without the already trained up, ready population to staff these places, that means they're going to do their favorite thing, which is look abroad to bring in more people who, in a few years, someone's going to wake up and realize, wait, hang on, what are all these black and brown people doing here? Let's take back our country.
I
It's
mean,
almost like a doom. It's a doom loop.
it is a zone loop. It keeps happening. Please give me a minute. NEPA just did their thing.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, the main power supply has been cut. So now Cheta needs to switch from main power to alternate power. Part of the joys of living in our part of the world,
Okay,
and
I'm
it
back.
seems he's back. Yes, I was just
Yes.
explaining Cheta uh how part for the course of living in places like Nigeria is that every now and then the government reminds you that they are there by ensuring that your power supply is cut.
Let's not go into that. Um, so one of my own annoyances with respect to the Magodo thing is so in trying to solve the power problem, previous governments did what was did this thing called winning buyer, winning seller. The states who could have put it so that could did by giving the offer of higher tariffs to guarantee power. And it's worked for a while. But that has been scrapped. And this sums up a lot of the problems with countries such as Nigeria. Continuity is a problem. For all of the complaints about the attitude of the government in the UK towards immigration and etc., you can see a trend of continuity.
Well, true that.
Unlike in Nigeria, where the new government will come and with one of the expressions that I hate is with immediate effects. They will just slap it. It causes problems down the line. A lot of
Yeah.
problems. Now, our political
Scraps.
class don't seem to realize that or don't seem to care.
Yeah. I mean, scrap everything while the new regime tries to grapple with just what the hell they have done or what the hell they actually want to do. It's always more of a power play than it is any other thing. But you know what? That is that's that over there. So talking about the doom loop, the other thing that was quite interesting um was the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. Now, of course, that was
My initial reaction to that is waiting concern us. We are not entitled to benefits. So
yeah, of course. But I'll tell you, how again it's quite interesting, or why I found it interesting anyway, because definitely it has no bearing on us. We have no recourse to public funds, so no, and as our interview, we had an interview last week with MC Olomo. If you've not listened to it, please do.
not MC
Uh,
Oluomo.
my goodness, Uloma of Derby. You see, that's the thing with that name. No, we had an interview with Uloma of Derby. If you've not listened to it, please do. And we're going to have more interview podcasts just like that. But the interesting thing about the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap to make it so families with more than two children can claim benefits for those children is that Kemi, and her conservatives came out in swinging, vehemently opposed to it, which was quite interesting because these are the same, well, at least a lot of people in her party are complaining about the falling birth rate of the UK and how immigrants are outbirthing British natives. And you would have thought that if there was one thing that some people have cynically said would ensure that people just kept having children, if only to have benefits, which I think is a silly thing to say anyway. But if there was one thing that sort of like helped your argument of increasing the birth rate, you would welcome it. But of course, Kemi put on her school bully shoes and just had that awful performance. But it was just
So
quite interesting.
it's not a chemic problem. It's a
The
problem of the
paradox.
rights. Yeah, it's a paradox of the rights generally, and it's not just in the UK. So the right encourages policies that guarantee that it is harder for people to resell it. yes, they turn around and complain about people, um, people not falling birth rates. I mean, classic example. One of the things that puts one of the pieces of advice I've given a number of younger people who have asked me for advice with regards migration from Nigeria is, by all means, if you want to migrate, migration at the end of the day, let's be real, it's mainly an economic decision. It takes a lot for it to be a political decision. Something typically when people decide to migrate for political reasons, something really shattering that happens. In the case of many of us who ended up leaving Nigeria to 2021, it was the Lekki massacre. Something
Yep.
like that happened, and it's really shattered the worldview of a lot of people. But this vast majority of migrants move for economic reasons. So when you have unemployment rates in the 30 to 40% range, when you have inflation in the 20% and the 20% and above, when you have
And those are
wages
the official
stagnant,
figures which we know
those are the official figures. When you
to
have
take
wages
with a pinch
stagnant
of
and all of
salt.
that,
Mm.
then people will move. However, what I always tell younger people is you need to make a decision. If you are moving and you have a family where the children are not at least autonomous, not necessarily independent, you may be better served by staying in Nigeria until the kids, as hard as it is, until the kids are autonomous. Because the cost of childcare, and it's not just the UK, it's the West generally. Childcare costs are ridiculous, and the family structure does not encourage. So you have a situation where people have to work to make ends meet. Both parents are likely to have to work, especially for those of us expats who are not entitled to benefits. If we were entitled to benefits, it might be a different conversation. A, we are not entitled to benefits. B, our orientation does not even the way we were brought up, the way our culture we so one thing that I always find it's very amusing, mildly amusing when I hear of course you don't, but I watch TV news occasionally, and when I see the people on TV news saying, "Oh, all the migrants, when the moment they get indefinitely to remain, they will immediately go on benefits," and I'm like, you don't. It shows a serious misunderstanding of the culture of this my culture.
Mm.
Let me not.
I mean,
I think you,
far be it from us that our neighbors even hear that we're on benefits, and they're looking at you like, and when I say our neighbors, I'm talking about people from our communities, because they're looking at you like, what?
I
When
think
did you become this lazy? As in
the
that's
social
and
suicide,
that's how we look at it. Yeah.
the social suicide that will happen to a a Nigerian. So let me speak about a Nigerian. The
Mm.
social suicide that will happen to the Nigerian if his community hears that he's living on benefits. Anybody, as
And
in,
and he's able to work.
yeah, and he's able to work. Let's take an Igbo guy. The kind of injury he will face, he will not be able to raise his head in his community if he's able-bodied and then people here he's on benefits. Even I think even the even if it's supposed to be quote unquote temporary, again, a truth is that life sometimes happens. You could
Mm-hmm.
there could be you could be working in random in Bloomberg, and then there's mass layoffs and you're suddenly out of job. But our community is so geared. People will say, I say that you are now going to line up to collect benefits. And then people hear it, you are done for. So it's I'm going to rant about that.
This is beautiful to see. I'm not the only one, but carry on.
I'm supposed to be the calm, collected analyst here.
I should clip this and send to some of your clients to say, well, hang on, is this a man doing your in-country analysis? He's gone off and joined the revolutionaries.
Now you know. Anyway, I think the bottom line to sort of recap,
Mm.
for people from our own community, the African expat community in the UK, looking at the budgets, I think there are four takeaways that I would want to talk about. There's given how intertwined the budgets and all the rhetoric on immigration is. I think that is the most critical landmine. If you're on a skilled worker visa, check it out. Forex to start missing you first. And if you run a business with sponsor employees, you should do a workforce impact assessment. It's essential. Basically, review your immigration status. Number two, plan for higher taxes. I think people should start talking the effects of the frozen thresholds on take-home pay so that they can plan better. They can know the facts to cut out from your daily from your regular expenditures. If you have investment property or you receive dividends, budget for increased tax rates starting from next fiscal year. And I think it's also important to digitize finances, especially if you're self-employed. So students have access to know the next steps. And yeah, that's my last thing. Let's speak with an accountant. Basically, seek professional advice, not just in for finances, also for the immigration. So talk with the tax advisor or accountant or an immigration lawyer or three. I know that's if you're lucky and you have such in your family, at least based on our own culture, they would give you put something aside to be able to pay to get such advice. That's
Definitely. So to round up, Cheta, keep an eye on the books and keep the books.
Keep an eye on the books and keep the books.
All right, Cheta, thank you very much for your time this morning. I know you have lots of meetings lined up, so let's not keep you any longer and let's not keep your amazing clients any longer. We'll see you at the next one.
See you next week.